Hey, so I'm gonna try something new. I gotta keep my voice down because it's late at night. But yeah, so this is my own homegrown bicarb trick for ABG readings, to the extent that if you go online and you try to take a common level ABG quiz, this will serve you 100% of the time. At least that's been my experience. So I think you're likely to be able to handle any ABG problem online with this trick. Of course, I'm not sure that all of medical school won't have exceptions to this, but to the extent that I'm comfortable going into my medical exams with this level of knowledge, I want to share this with you. So, here we have a pH, an ABG. So we're going to go through it with this first chart first, and then see if it's compensating. We'll answer questions about compensation next. So first we look at we're going to look at bicarb. So bicarb looks like it's low, below range. Okay, so 19, 22 to 29 is the range I was given. So CO2. First we look at bicarb. We say, okay, is it helping? What do we mean by is it helping? So what we do is we look at bicarb, we see that it's low, then we look at pH. Now what we want is for bicarb to be correcting any problems we have with pH. Okay? So if we're acidotic, or if we have acidaemia, because our blood pH is low, then the last thing we want is to produce too little bicarb, which is what we're doing. Okay, so what we say to ourselves is, the reason we know that we should start with bicarb is because bicarb takes time. Bicarb is it's like chronic, acidosis, acidemia really. Result. What do I mean by that? I mean that you can only get out of range bicarb, or at least to my understanding, you would only produce out of range bicarb physiologically to combat a chronic problem with pH. Okay? So we know that we can start with bicarb because it takes longer for your body to make the decision to produce bicarb. So you have to have a persistent problem. Okay, whereas if you look at CO2, it won't tell you much because it's acute, so it's a shorter snapshot of time. This is a decision your body made. Bicarb is a decision, or it's a pathology. So either it's in response, or it is the cause, because it takes longer. It has to. Okay, so bicarb is at 19, so it's below range, meaning it's allowing more diffused H plus molecules to exist, and carbonic acid molecules to exist in your blood. So it is hurting. So is it helping? No, it's hurting. Okay, so if it's hurting, then we know that if the pH is low, that we have that because the pH was low to begin with, that we have in other words, because it's hurting, we know that if the pH is low and hurting, being hurt by bicarb, it's metabolic acidosis. If the pH were high, and then the bicarb would have to be high to be hurting, and therefore it'd be metabolic alkalosis. Okay, So let's look at whether it's compensating. Well, if you're looking at whether it's compensating and you only have two organs that you're looking at with respect to an ABG, because CO2 is your representation, whether you're hypo or hyperventilating in this case. So you're very unlikely to have a problem with both organs. So you look at the lungs and you say to yourself, you're the only alternative to my kidneys in this case. So the only compensatory mechanism that we're looking at is respiration. So if you have a metabolic acidosis, what is the only way that you can combat that? It has to be respiratory. Okay, so we're going to go here because we have a metabolic acidosis. So the result has to be a compensatory respiratory result. And you must be getting compensatory respiratory alkalosis. It's simple as that. It will always work out. Okay, let's look at another example here. For no reason, because you've got it. But let's see. So let's see, this was 31. Let's see that pH was helped by that. So let's say that the pH was low. Okay. Low, but close. So 7.32. Okay. So, and the other thing to consider is if this is important, if you're outside of range and you're compensated, then you are only partially compensated. If you're within range and you're compensated, then you are fully compensated. Okay, so this would be partial compensation if it's compensatory, but we'll look at whether it's compensatory later. So 31, okay, meaning you're outside of range for bicarb. And it's actually in the right direction. So you have more bicarb, meaning you're taking up more H+, meaning you're making it more alkalotic. Okay, and the problem is that your pH is acidotic. So is your bicarb helping? Yes, it is. Okay, so yes, it is helping. So was the pH low or high? The pH was low. Okay, so if the pH was low, you're acidotic. So you must have a respiratory problem, not a metabolic problem. If you had a metabolic problem, it would be hurting. It is helping. Okay, it's your respiratory acidosis. Okay, so what kind of compensatory mechanism would your body produce to solve this? Well, it actually is already doing it. Okay, it is already doing it. I haven't even looked at CO2. Okay, we have respiratory acidosis. We must have respiratory acidosis under this paradigm. Okay, so let's fill that in. What is respiratory acidosis? That's hypoventilation, meaning we have a CO2 of like 55. Okay, I know that because under this paradigm it has to be that way. Okay, so the compensation must be metabolic. Okay, and our metabolic compensation is to make it more alkalotic. So this would be this is respiratory, so it went to metabolic alkalosis, production of bicarbonate. Okay, the only cases that this doesn't work. Okay, the only cases that this doesn't work. It works every time. The only case that is not helpful, actually, is when you know the answer already. Okay, so the only time that I would say maybe don't use this is if you have a completely normal person whose pH and their CO2 and their bicarb are all normal. The only other situation that this might not help is if they're uncompensated. So you know that if you have a high CO2, okay, and the bicarb's in normal range, that your bicarb's not doing anything, and you have high CO2, so you must be hypoventilating. Okay, so you look at your pH to see if that's true. Okay, should be, I think. I have to think about it. Anyway, for all intents and purposes, I think this is really nice. I think this is a really nice way to think about it. Tell me I'm wrong. I would actually really like to know that I'm wrong moving forward, because this is how I've been doing ABGs and really being happy about it. Sorry for my low, hiding from my roommate voice, but hope you liked it. Thanks. Like, comment, subscribe, you know.